my lovelies. Welcome back to my platform, Reading Books. So, today I'm back again with yet another book reading session for you. So, straight away going into the book that I'm going to be reading for you. It's on this travel experiences by this author Neeraj Narayanan, and his book's name is This Guy's on His Own Trip. This particular person, he is his primary occupation is not that of an author. He's a tour leader. He's a trip leader. He's founded a travel company wherein he organizes trips with few people and in and outside of India. He's been doing this, I believe, for the last 5 to 6 years now. And this set of travel experiences are about his solo travels, and which he had done after quitting his corporate job and before founding his company. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, guys. I must say that if you're looking to travel solo or have been traveling, you must definitely grab this book because you can really relate to what this guy has written. A lot of the experiences out there. It's quite witty. I caught myself, laughing many times while reading this particular book. And because I have also, done solo travels, I could relate a lot to his experiences written out in this particular book. So today I'm actually going to be reading this particular chapter, Running with the Bulls, which is a 10-page chapter. And during his, solo travels in Europe. And he lands up in Spain to take part in the Bull Festival over there, the world famous Bull Festival, and how he his adventurous experience over there. That's what I'm going to be reading to you about. Let me also tell you that this person is actually from my own hometown, which is Palakkad. And though if maybe sometime in future I would definitely like to meet him if both of us are in Palakkad at the same time. I also want to very badly go on a trip along with him and his group sometime, once these travel restrictions are lifted. Let's see how that works out. If it does, I'll definitely tell you guys about it. So let's get on with reading this particular chapter. Chapter 6, Running with the Bulls. As I desperately tried to break my fall, hoping to hold on to something, anything, two thoughts crossed my mind. One, if I fell here at the end of the pile, the bull would get me first. And two, could it really all end here? How the hell could my script go so wrong? A leg hit my head and all went blank. When I turned, the bull was almost on top of me. I had reached the town of Pamplona on the 6th of July. I had met James, an American boy with Mexican roots, a day earlier in Barcelona. Since we both wanted to be part of the famous San Fermin festival, we rode the intercity bus to this small town in Spain's Navarre region. The San Fermin is Spain's most popular festival. It is talked about all over the world and attracts millions of visitors annually. In this 8-day festival held between 6th of July and 14th, the Encierro, or the Running with the Bulls, is the main event. James and I had come precisely for that and hoped that we could come out alive at the end of it. Besides the Encierro, there are folk dances, concerts, parties, and fun competitions that happen over this colorful week. When we reached, the whole town was already crammed with travelers. Everyone who was visiting Spain seemed to want to be part of the San Fermin. There were so many tourists that all the hotels and hostels were full. Many of us planned to sleep in the city park if we couldn't find any accommodation. We put our bags in the lockers of the bus station and headed out into the town as early as 9 a.m. Tradition insists that people dress in whites during the San Fermin festival. I was wearing a white shirt matched with white linen pants. People are also expected to wear a red scarf or kerchief around their necks and tie a red waistband or sash around their waists. All the shops were selling these, so we quickly bought some. Soon I understood why the San Fermin was so popular. It is 9 days of pure fun and partying. People roam around on the streets drinking sangria, singing songs, throwing wine and water on each other. It is a little it's a little like the festival of Holi, but instead of color, they play it with a crazy amount of alcohol, that too for 9 days. The Encierro or the Pamplona Bull Run starts on the 7th of July, a day after the opening ceremony, and goes on till the 14th. It's an 850-meter run through some restricted streets of Pamplona and starts every morning at about 8 a.m. We were all drenched in alcohol within an hour, and our clothes were now a pale shade of purple. I followed the shopkeeper's advice and tied the scarf around my wrist. He also informed me that it was only supposed to be worn around the neck once the festival was officially open at noon. By 11 a.m., we were all headed to the town square from where the fireworks would start at noon to signal the opening of the festival. It was absolutely crazy, with everyone throwing sangria at each other and spraying whoever they would using water pistols. Locals whose houses were in the area were throwing buckets of water and ice from the balconies on the crowd gathered below, and everyone was laughing and hooting. Some girls climbed onto the shoulders of boys they had come with, and the crowd teased them to take their tops off. This custom has become quite common each year at the San Fermin. The moment a girl climbs onto a guy's shoulder, the crowd eggs her to take her tee off for a few seconds. If she does so, there is a cry of approval. If she doesn't, there is a bit of hooting and booing, but all in fun and good spirit. I asked a couple of girls later what prompted them to take their tops off, and they smiled at me and said, "Liberty." 20 seconds of absolute liberty. At noon, a rocket firecracker, uh, Pan Pinazo in Spanish, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, was launched to mark the opening of the festival amid wide cheering and singing around the crowd. There were so many people in the town square that it was difficult to even stand straight. There were entire minutes when I could not put one of my feet on the ground because the moment I did, I would stamp on someone's foot. We were jostled left and right, but people kept singing and cheering and lifting their scarves high in the air. I had never seen such scenes in my life before. Soon the parties began and all the pubs were blaring music. People who were too sloshed lay down or slept off in the small grass beds along the streets. It amused me that there in Pamplona, it felt perfectly normal to do so. James and I bumped into Adam and Doug. They were like Jimmy Boy from the USA. They had rented a huge mansion in the outskirts of the town for 2 days and were looking for five more people to share the house and the renting costs. They had already found a cheerful Canadian girl called Emma, a tall, broad shouldered Nigerian gym instructor called Capo, and Seth, a scholarly Egyptian with a crazy mop of curly hair. Jimmy and I were the last two to join the gang. I studied Seth. He wore thick spectacles, had a camera slung around his neck, and was the only among us not dressed in white. He was a history professor back in Cairo and the only serious person in the group. I liked him. At lunch, I asked who all were planning to run with the Bulls the next day. Only Keiko said that he would join me and James, but he looked very nervous. I wondered why. He was so strongly built that I felt he could probably tuck two bulls under both armpits and run. I assured him it would be a piece of cake and we would complete the run easily. I had no clue what was in store for me. As we kept strolling through the streets, we bumped into a local boy called Alberto. Of all the people I met in Pamplona, I got to spend the least time with Alberto, but I liked him the most. He looked 25 with his long brown unkempt beard, but he was actually 5 years younger. He had already run in the Encero in the last 3 years and seemed to know all about it. But I liked him most for his hearty laugh, his carefree manner, and his eyes. He smiled from his eyes and he even spoke from them. Alberto told us that there were four golden rules one needed to keep in mind while running with the bulls. Rule number one, Nero, is to never run on day one. Don't run tomorrow, he ordered me. I asked why, and he told me all the tourists want to run on day one. They have no idea what to expect. They fall, and the bulls gore or kill them. I pointed out that in almost 90 years of this traditional run, only 25 had actually died. You will be the 26th, he prophesied. So I quickly decided to listen to him and run on day two, the 8th of July. Rule number two, he said dramatically, Now he was enjoying his little speech. Do not be drunk before running. That sounded quite logical, so we nodded our heads in reply. Rule number 3: sleep well the night before the run. Don't be tired when you turn up for the event. Again, that made perfect sense. Felt a tad bit disappointed that we weren't asking him why. And the last rule, my friend Nero, is to never run in the middle of the street. When I looked quizzically, he added triumphantly, these bulls are the best in all of Spain. They are the most well fed, the strongest, and they have had the most sex. They will always be faster than you, and they run through the middle anyways. Always. So if you run in their path, they will lift you in on their big horns, toss you, and charge through. You don't want to stare at your intestines lying on the road and people running all over it. Do you, Nero? He asked, laughing. I confirmed that I love my intestines in their present position inside my body. So, having learned the 4 rules, we shook hands with this merry lad and wished each other good luck. Well, now that we were going to run the day after tomorrow, what do we do now? Capo asked us. I winked and raised my bottle. Through the evening and night, we drank with abandon. I wonder why I wasn't more drunk, but all I remember now about that evening is walking into random bars, dancing a lot, and speaking to a lot of people. We went to this one bar called Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem means to live in the moment. Say it. Forget your rules, your inhibitions, come dance with us. Doug told him. The rest of us hooted in unison while Seth raised his camera and took a photograph of us. Around 3 a.m., I could not find any of my friends in the bar, so I befriended some other locals and started dancing with them. Carpe Diem, I told myself. San Fermin was truly the place for that. I left the bar at around 6 a.m. I had a plan. The previous evening, Alberto had shown us the streets of the Bull Run. In this 850-meter stretch, the first 750 meters were flanked by shops and houses, but the last 100 meters were flanked by wooden fences and no buildings. People who wanted to watch the Encero would sit here to get the best view, but it would fill up fast. So I planned to go there as early as 6 a.m. and grab a spot for myself so that I could observe the race on that day and come back the next morning to run myself. When I reached, I was shocked to see that the fences were already packed. There were so many people sitting there that not even space for fly to pass through. I wondered what to do next. The other option was to watch it from the balcony of one of the buildings that were on the streets of the run, but all the houses were charging 80 euros to let anyone onto their balconies. That's about rupees 6,000 to watch a run that would end in less than 10 minutes. I made my decision. I do not know if it was my half-drunk, exhausted state or my inherent nature, but I decided to run then and there. I would run on the first day itself, thus regarding Alberto's advice to not run on day 1. I realized that the 3 rules were getting broken right away when I took this decision. I had been dancing all evening and night, had not slept a wink, and was quite exhausted now. Even though I was walking normally and felt that my mental faculties were serving me well, I must have had more than 7 to 8 liters of wine and enough beer inside me the previous day. It was 7 a.m. by the time I reached the starting point of the run. The runners were slowly gathering. In this mob, I was shocked to see some people bring their small children as well. There were even some old people in their 60s and 70s. Thankfully, the Spanish police were monitoring the runners and removed all such people. The atmosphere was electric. The fence and the balconies were absolutely full. Some of the runners started singing football as well as war songs, and everyone joined them at the top of their voices. It was like being in a stadium and watching the World Cup final amid frenzied people. It was probably the best stadium experience I had ever got. As it got closer to the hour, I could feel the tension in the air. There was way too many people on the streets. I started to feel nervous. The Spanish police was standing in front of the first line of runners at the starting point. There was too much jostling going on as we waited for the clock to strike 8 a.m. There are too many people running. Will I get space at all to make a sprint? I mused to myself. My thoughts took me back by a few months of me wondering if solo travel was meant for me at all, if I could ever do it or enjoy it. I dreamed of having adventures. I used to read about them all day in office. Then one day I saw a video of the bull run and I knew I wanted to do it. For months, I had been reading about backpacking and living in the moment. What could be more living in a moment than actually running for your life? And well, here I was now, without a job in Spain, dressed in whites, and standing with 1,000 people singing at the top of their voices. I joined in the singing. What I did not know then was that in almost 100 years of the Bull Run's history, the 7th of July 2013 would see the maximum runners ever. Just my luck. What I also did not know then was that in a few minutes my adventure would hit me in my face. As we kept roaring and screaming, the hour was reached. Two rockets were burst, the first to signal that the bulls had left their enclosure, and the second to signal that all six of them were now out and running in our direction and that we could now run for our lives. The moment we started running, I realized the full impact of the huge number of people participating. There was absolutely no space to run. I banged into the person in front of me. There were people everywhere around me. Since everyone knew the rules, the only space I saw was in the center of the street. So I started running through there, effectively breaking all of Alberto's rules. The problem with this run is that the runners can't see the bulls until they are right behind you. There are so many runners that all you see while running is a sea of bodies. But the people watching from their high balconies in the building see the bulls early and start screaming. When that happens, all the runners panic and start running faster, pushing people out of their way. About 300 meters from the end, the first bull passed me. It was huge. I don't remember if it was the screams of the people or the sounds of the bull's feet making a resounding noise that made me notice it first. But I remember my heart pounding as it raced past me, its body reflecting pure muscle. It was soon followed by two other bulls as we ran, and as we ran, our hearts raced faster than our legs. I was keeping account of the number of bulls that were crossing me. There were six in all, even if all of them crossed me. All I needed to do was to reach the finish line. It wasn't a race. Two other bulls crossed me. I could now see the wooden fences in the distance. So I knew I was approximately 100 meters from the finish line. The sixth bull passed me in a few seconds, and I breathed a sigh of relief. That's when it happened, what I or no one else expected. The last bull turned 180 degrees and started running in a zigzag manner towards the barricades on both the sides and towards us. All hell broke loose. Everyone started screaming. A few people perched on the wooden fences fell off the top of the barricades onto the outer side. The bull was charging towards us, but we could not do anything. Stopping in our tracks was out of the question as there were 1,000 people behind who would then bang into us. It all happened so blindingly fast that I don't think we even had the time to figure out the above. The next moment, I was heavily pushed from behind and I slammed into a runner in front. Man had, as usual, fallen prey to panic. Ahead, one person tripped and all the runners followed in his line fell like a pack of cards right behind him. It is on that fateful day that I realized what happens in a stampede. As I saw the girl in front of me crumble and her feet getting entangled with mine, I struck out my arms desperately in the air, hoping to find some support that would break my fall. As I stumbled and willed myself to somehow stay on my feet, I could feel the beast right behind me. The next moment, my feet flew underneath me. As I desperately tried to break my fall, hoping to hold on to something, anything, only two thoughts crossed my head. One, if I fell here at the end of the pipe, the bull would get me first. And two, could it really all end here? How the hell could my script go so wrong? The next moment, I lay flat on the ground at the end of the heap of people. My head had hit the girl's leg as I fell, and it felt like a little woozy now. I rubbed it and opened my eyes. The bull was only a meter away from me, staring me in the face. I closed my eyes and opened them again. Yep, the bull was there. It is in moments such as these that you realize that your well-wishers are sometimes right. All those people I had left back in India had told me, Neeraj, it's too dangerous. I had replied saying that it was only 800 meters away. 800 odd meters, and I would do it easily. Now we were here only 30 meters from the finish line, and a big bull is standing almost on top of me. I have tried many times to replay that moment in my head. I don't think I was too frightened then. I think the only emotion I was feeling then was pure disbelief. It really couldn't end here, could it? I wasn't hurt, I wasn't tired, I wasn't ill. How could I die? It was just not possible. In hindsight, I think I love how ridiculously biased my optimism was. But truth be told, I don't recollect much. It was all a blur, a chaotic one at that. I have faint memories of people screaming, some herders trying to divert the bull's attention, and people running all around me. It seemed that all of this was happening in super slow motion. In the face of death, time does slow down. I looked at the bull as I lay flat, and it looked back at me. At that moment, I was maybe too shocked, so I might not accurately remember things as they were, but my heart tells me that when I looked into the bull's eyes, there was a gentleness in them. Also, fear and confusion. I feel guilty now, but back then I kept looking as everyone around me kept running. I kept looking at it. It stared back motionless. I wanted to run, but I was worried that my movement could trigger him and he might gore me then. So I stayed put. We stayed like that, frozen for probably a minute, maybe 2 minutes. But somewhere I realized that the bull wasn't charging to kill me. Could I make a run for it? Could I take the risk? I let these thoughts confuse me for a few seconds before making up my mind. I don't think I even stood up. I picked myself up enough to crawl, stumble, and run. Once I was a few meters away, I bolted as fast as I could, not turning to look back even once. Later that evening, someone told me that the bulls don't attack you if you're lying flat on the ground. Well, they say that bulls don't turn and run back either. I quit. That night I went drinking and dancing again, back to Carpe Diem. That made sense. That's a wonderful, adventurous, and near death facing experience that this person Neeraj has written. Now he's this book is actually packed with a lot of such experiences and fun ones too. It's amazing, guys. He's actually called as Captain Nero, and he wears this captain's cap always. In all his photos you can see him wearing that, in all his trips also. He's there on Instagram, and he's also it's called as This Guy's on His Own Trip on Facebook as well. So if you're looking to join him on his trip, then please do so. But before that, please try and grab a copy of this book. I'm sure you're gonna enjoy it and you would want to be traveling with him. So that's for today's session, guys. This guy's on his own trip by Neeraj Narayanan, also known as Captain Nero. Goodbye, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session.